What's happening, guys? It's the Cassius Morris Show. Thank you for tuning in to episode number 182. You know, every once in a while on this program, I get the opportunity to really jump out of my comfort zone and delve into a world of knowledge that I hadn't yet been privy to. And this is one of those opportunities. You know, Jill Himitsu is a good friend of mine since I've known since back around probably 2013 through 2012. And, you know, we always knew each other through the Joe Rogan Death Squad sort of comedy podcast circle. And I was quite young at the time, so we didn't really get the chance to get to know one another on like a personal level, human to human type of thing, because I think, not that it was a barrier, it just almost wasn't called for. We bonded over comedy and our love for these comedians, and that's exactly what was called for when I was at that age. So fast forward like 7-8 years later, here we are, and this is myself and Jill's first time talking voice to voice, face to face since I was like 13 years old. So as you see right off the top, it's a bit of a trip for Jill, and that's why I love doing all these sort of throwback reminiscing episodes where I'm reconnecting with people, because I'm still doing this, and I was a kid when I first met him, and these people are essentially the same to me. Like Jill Himitsu from when I met her is essentially the same Jill Himitsu, other than the personal evolution and growth that everybody goes through that I remember. So it's something that I have trouble wrapping my mind around, that the fact that, okay, like I'm talking to the same person, but they're not. So that's why I love doing this. And also, like I said right off the top, I've never really had a family member or a close friend who teaches education, especially alt ed or special ed. So it's really interesting for me to hear Jill's take on this and really what it's been like. Not only we go through the day-to-day of sort of what it's like every day teaching special ed and alt ed in a school, but then we really delve into what it's been like now since the quarantine and since you're having to do it online, because obviously even the face-to-face teaching is much different than what you would typically get. So when you add the element of Zoom and all this, it becomes very interesting. So we were going back and forth on Twitter a little bit talking about it. It came up. I said, Jill, please come on the podcast. I'd love to have you open up and share it with my audience on my platform. And she said she'd be happy to. So thank you, Jill, for joining me. And I hope you guys are enlightened in some way, shape, or form by this conversation. So without further ado, here we are. Let's run it. Jill Himitsu, thank you for joining me on the Cassius Morris Show.
Thank you for having me after like 10 years.
I know, forever. This has been a crazy story. So like, I feel like it's important before jumping into all this stuff to give a little bit of context. So we connected on Twitter in like, it was what, 2010 type of thing?
Maybe it might even have been as late as 2012.
That makes sense, because I think that's when I was more out there. Yeah, and then sort of we connected over Twitter because you were always a prominent figure, like in the Death Squad, Rogan, Diaz, I think, community on Twitter. How did that exactly happen, by the way? Like just for a little bit of context.
It's so weird to me, even because it was such a whole lifetime ago when it started. But I just fell into Rogan's podcast. Somebody told me to listen, and I was like a stay-at-home mom at the time, Army wife, stay-at-home mom. And I just joined Twitter and just started talking to people. Like, I think I just tweeted at Red Band and just started talking to him. I was just like, this is cool as shit. What's up? And for some reason, people responded.
Yeah. That's really cool. I almost feel like the people who decided to take that leap and really be interactive in those really formative days, I feel like it made an impression to those guys, because even though they had a lot of success, I feel like the people such as yourself, and I can name so many others in the Twitter community, are really what got this going and to become what it is today.
Yeah. And I mean, I was lucky enough that I just fell into the right people who I feel like when I met you, you were famous to me. You were this little kid, like you were
right.
famous.
Right.
That reporter kid, and Izzy Rock, like everybody who was already there and established, it was such like an open, loving, like open arm community that they were like, you're new here? Yep, come on in. And I was just accepted from day one.
Yeah.
And that's back when you could like tweet at Bert and be like, hey, what are you doing? And he'd be like, nothing, like answering back. They're
Chilling.
all so busy now, but
Yeah. It is insane to think about. Like, and I was talking about this, on a podcast the other day. When you look at like the evolution of Tom Segura and Bert, especially, like there was a time where it was like 1 out of 20 people maybe knew who Tom Segura was, and now it's like 1 out of 5 people maybe don't know him.
yes, I actually saw somebody on Twitter the other day was, I didn't get into it because I don't follow wrestling, but Tom was talking about wrestling, and I follow some wrestling fans, and somebody was like, "Who is this guy?" And I, I was like, "You don't know who Tom Segura is?
Yeah.
No, like, get educated, Betty. Like,
Get
get
Netflix,
out of my
pal.
followers if you don't know who Tom Segura is. Everybody knows who he is. It's so crazy now. Like,
It is.
I mean, to me, he was always a big name. He was always hilarious. We all loved him, but like to see him all over Netflix, see all of them all over Netflix and everything now, it's just crazy.
It is crazy. Yeah, it's a whole nother level, and it just goes to show if you're really putting in the grind in a certain way, you can really, really get far ahead. And we sat here and watched the timeline, and we've all been evolving ourselves. But in terms of these specific guys, we've watched it happen. Um, do you ever miss the days where it was like a little secret almost? Like even though it was on the internet, it almost felt like these guys were like little treasures that not everybody knew.
Yes, I definitely miss that. I miss that a lot because like I was lucky enough that like it was like a little secret and they weren't, such big names. So like Tom and Christina came out and recorded Your Mom's House live podcast in Seattle. And I got
Mm.
to just sit there and hang out with them. And, they knew who I was. And I was just like, oh, this is so cool. But it's like Tom now when he comes to town, it's like we throw a peace sign across the room and he's like, oh, hey. But he does not have fucking time. Like, I wish that I could say that I'm that special that Tom makes time for me, but no, Tom doesn't make time for me.
Email my agent, and then maybe he's at that level now. But hey, he deserves it. That's the thing. Like these guys, they deserve it. And it is funny to think like they were. I did consider them all famous at that time, but they weren't household names to that level. So it is beautiful to watch. Um, in terms of the podcast community, um, and like the people that you've interacted with on Twitter, who do you find has been the most consistent? Who do you find is the people that you're like, this person's still out here in the community?
Bert, by far.
Yeah, yeah.
Bert is, that's the one person where he will make time for me. Like, when
Mm.
Bert comes anywhere near me, if I let him know I'm coming to a show, like, he'll still throw me tickets or at least make sure that I'm hanging out with him or, whatever. But he does that with a lot of people. Like, a lot of people don't understand that, like, Bert will go hang out with you. Like, you don't
Yeah.
have to be, or you, to go hang out with Bert. Like, if you just
Mhm.
go to the show and you find the closest bar afterwards, he's going to be there. And he is really consistent with his fans and in his comedy, I think. I think that, yeah. And Joey Diaz.
Yes, 100%. No, it's crazy. When I was working at the comedy club here in Edmonton, Bert came, and I was young, so I was like 17, like almost 18, and the drinking age here is 18. So me and Bert were talking after the show and stuff, and he's like, "So you're gonna come get some drinks, or you're gonna be a little bitch?" And I was like, "Actually, I literally don't have an ID, and I'm not being a little bitch, but I can't go in." So it's like that was a shame, but no, Bert's around, and he's always a cool guy. Um, Focusing in on you personally, because a lot of people know you from Twitter and they know you from sort of your comedian affiliations, but they don't really know much about Jill. So you're a teacher, right? And if
I
you could tell
am.
me about that, what grade do you teach?
I teach middle school,
Okay.
sixth, seventh, and eighth grade here, and I specifically teach special education behavior focus. So, no, I have all the kids who can't handle the classrooms.
Right. So how long have you been in this line of work?
I've been working in education for the last 6 years, I think, and I
Okay.
started out just as a one-on-one with autistic kids, and then
Okay.
teaching special ed in different classrooms, basically just floating. And then I've been in different like alt ed programs and spec ed programs since then. This position now in the middle school is new this year.
Okay.
Um, but I've been working in alt ed spec ed programs for like 6 years now.
That's a
So
pretty good run. So what drew you to special education in particular? Like, do you have any background like that?
I just I have a degree in English, and I always told everybody, they're always like, "Oh, you're gonna teach?" And I was like, "No, I'm never gonna be a teacher. I don't want to."
Really?
And I just after I got divorced, I was looking for jobs, and I was back in my hometown, and I was like, what's the most consistent thing that I can do with my degree, to take care of my kids, and education's it. And I have a lot of like friends and family members who have special needs children, whether
Mm.
it's learning disabilities or anything else. So when I went in to interview with the principal for a different position, he called me and he was like, "You didn't get that job, but there's a spec ed position open and I want you for that. Like, we're not even
Mm.
going to list it. Just come in. Like, we want you for
Right.
that one." So I just kind of like responsibility raised its head at me, and I had to find something to fall into, and I never thought I'd teach, and I
Hmm.
have found my passion. So there you go.
That's actually really interesting. So you said you swore you'd never do it, and then you started doing
Yeah.
it, and you became passionate about it. Did the passion come? Did it take time for that, or was it like, I'm not used to this, or was it like, oh, I really like this right away?
Um, well, I knew right away that I liked it because it was easy. It just came easily to me. Um, but I found out like alt ed is my real passion,
Hmm.
and that I kind of just fell into when I moved to Green Bay. The school that was hiring was the alt ed school, and so I went and interviewed, and I got the job, and that's how I found alt ed, and that's like where my heart's really at. So.
Wow. So what are some of the biggest challenges for the kids that you teach and work with in terms of going to a school environment on a day-to-day basis? I'm talking from the in-person front that you've been doing before.
Like the differences between now and back when we were in school, or
Yeah, I'm
just
sort of
just like
interested.
alt ed on a regular basis?
It was what, sorry?
All right, do you want to talk about like online schooling, or do you want to know about like alternative education on a daily basis?
Yeah, first I want to go back to the daily basis because I'm curious to sort of get an idea of the daily basis of the in-person teaching and then sort of compare it to what you're doing now because frankly I don't really have an understanding of either one.
Well, so special education really covers like everything. A kid can have an IEP because they, have like lost, they're born with like half their hearing in one
Mm.
ear. They're going to have an IEP that just basically says like, make sure the left side is, toward the class, whatever.
Right.
Like, just to make sure that they're getting everything that they can to succeed. So it's not just learning disabilities and stuff like that. Like when they
Mm.
say special education, a lot of people want to change the name to adaptive education because we're
Okay.
just adapting. Alternative education is really like nothing is working for these kids. They
Mm.
might not be, they might be spec ed, they might be reg ed, doesn't matter, like, or they got expelled, or,
Mm.
like all those different things. So that's, I mean, that's where my heart's at. All of the above kind of mesh together well.
Right.
But um, it just looks different. It's
Mm.
alternative education is just kind of like, I like to compare it to like the old one room schoolhouse, like
Mm.
back in old TV shows and stuff, where it's like the teacher actually like knows the kids. Like
Right.
all ed teachers, spec ed teachers, I mean, basically what they're paid to do is to like get to know these kids and figure out why X, Y, and Z isn't working for them,
Yeah,
and
that makes sense.
what we can do to mold their education
Mm.
so that they can succeed. So
Right. So it's not necessarily all children with social issues or any particular type of issue. It's just sort of things that are limiting them from getting forward, and then you're there to help them with that.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Hmm.
I used to work in a program that was just seniors who were credit deficient. So if you're a senior and you're credit deficient, you know exactly why you are. You know,
Yeah.
I might not know. I mean, well, maybe you can't identify it wholly, but I mean, like
Or
most,
want to identify it, maybe.
right? And but like most of the kids are like, okay, we have like teen parents,
Mhm.
um, spec ed kids who just haven't succeeded, kids who just skipped school a lot. A lot of our immigrant kids like come to the country as like juniors, and it's like, well, you know, they're credit deficient. How do we mold this, do something for them so that they can succeed. So, like a lot of
Yeah.
I don't know if you have a GED program there
In
or
Canada,
anything.
yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, it's like another version of that, but it's just
Okay.
it's not like by the book. Like GED is like you
Hmm.
can buy a book and then you take the same test that everybody else takes. This is a little more personalized.
Interesting. And it sounds like from what you're saying, like, does it help with the personalization? Because you said it reminds you of like the old school
Yes.
schools.
I know all my like literally my Apple Watch is going off right now because former teachers and former students are texting me all the time. Like we all know each other. Like
Yeah.
small schools, I mean, are amazing.
Hmm.
Small schools are awesome. Small classrooms are even better. If you have a program where you have, you know, 100 students, you can get to know 100 students. It's easier when you only have like 20, but I mean,
Hmm.
like you just get to know them. You just listen. You just like when their birthday is. You know that
Hmm.
Mondays they come in late because they were at dad's house over the weekend and he lives a little further away. So
Right.
you don't give them grief when they get in late. Like it's just stuff like that. Like you just get to know them as a person and then use all your educator smarts to mold something to meet that kid's needs.
Yeah, that's awesome. And in terms of like my own personal experience in school, like I was sort of in programs like that along the way here and there as well, just because attention deficit, like actually having it, not being one of the kids that like is being pushed pills for it. So like I really struggle with it, and I always found that having that one-on-one connection with a teacher was I always learned better that way personally. So like
Right.
definitely I can understand that. So you see that in the kids.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've had students who like didn't speak to other teachers. They just sit there like not even going to respond, not even facial responses to like the teachers would say. And I'd bring them into my room and I would talk to them. Like I would spend all day with one kid.
Hmm.
And if we got one thing done, then we got it done. But I guarantee you, like we could have a conversation the next day about how I know where their favorite restaurant is or their favorite coffee shop. Or I just like ask them questions. What'd you eat for dinner last night?
Yeah. Just humanizing stuff.
Yes.
Hmm.
Because if they're not going to make a connection, like you have to make a connection somehow, and then the education part comes in.
Yeah. How do you think, like, do you think that there's generally not that approach from most teachers when they're not like there to assist extra, such as yourself? Like, because it seems like there's a lot of issues with just teachers in general communicating with students and getting their ideas across.
Well, I think that and this kind of ties into what we'll talk about COVID, but
Hmm.
I think that we are learning very quickly. I think that a lot of people are realizing right now what a lot of alt ed and spec ed people know is that our school districts are too big. Our schools are too big. We have too many kids in a classroom. We need a lower student teacher ratio. Um, we have to allow that's a whole thing I won't touch is like allowing teachers to have relationships with their students, which obviously I mean like healthy, educational ones.
Right.
But because that's so pushed away from you right now, very much so. It's very
Hmm.
hard to keep those connections without people getting angry. But
Right.
like you have to. We need smaller environments. We need the teachers to have the time and the ability to make the connections with the kids, or if the teachers aren't, then somebody else needs to be.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I agree with that. So, can you expand on that aspect of not really being able to have relationships with the kids in a productive way? Like, what's the biggest barrier for that?
I mean, all the fuck up teachers out there who have ruined it for everybody. There are very clear boundaries on like the communication you can have with students. In alt ed, it's a little bit different because like some of our students are on their own without parents,
Yeah.
so it's normal for them to have your phone number and be able to
Hmm.
call you at home and ask you if you have laundry detergent.
Right.
um, in programs that don't look like that, more traditional high school setting, if students have your phone number, people are going to be like, "Why
Hmm.
do students have your phone number?" And it's like, "Well, what if they need me?"
Yeah. Because
And I'm
you're
like,
there 5 days a week with them.
"Right." We spend a lot of time with these kids, a
Yeah.
lot. time. Um, and so just, like shitty teachers who have ruined it have just made it so like there was a teacher in a school district near here earlier this year who coached track,
Mm-hmm.
and he congratulated one of the female track runner girls, and he patted her on the back.
Mm-hmm.
And her parents saw it from the stands and complained, like, to the school board.
Hmm.
It was inappropriate. He quit immediately. He quit like
Oh,
before it could become an
because
issue,
he didn't want to face the fire.
right? Because as
Yeah.
soon as it's said, you're done. You're done. It doesn't matter if somebody like complains. You're done. The school district's done with you.
Man, yeah, especially in it because it's like comparable to any other situation is there's probably more of that rather in the school system just because you're so close with kids, particularly like even in any line of work, if you're accused of doing something against kids, you're nearly done. But obviously in the education board, so is it sort of like a no questions, and this isn't specific to just yours, but just in general, is it more of a no questions asked policy from school boards, or is there like is there usually investigations done?
There's investigations. I've worked at schools that
Mm-hmm.
have had situations, and there are investigations, and it does go big and public and legal, and but like when that happens, it's probably because it's true. Like
Yeah.
I'm sure that there are things, like I'm sure there are things that have happened that have been investigated that I don't even know about because it ended up being false or whatever. But the if you have 10 that you don't hear about, the one that you do hear about is because you hear about it on the news and they're sitting in jail.
Yeah.
So,
And I think there's a pretty good chance that it's probably true. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just
right,
like looking at the most likely scenario.
right.
So, so now I have a good amount of understanding of like what you're doing on a day-to-day basis and what the kids are doing. So talk to me about COVID-19 and how this has affected your teaching and your relationship with these students.
Oh, it's strange because the students that I teach specifically right now are all behavior focused middle schoolers.
Mm-hmm.
Middle school is hell on earth. I'm not really familiar with your educational system, but any grades where you're like 11 through 14, I think, is a pretty solid area of, oh, that sucked.
Oh, we're the same. We're the same.
I tell
Unfortunately.
all my students all the time, this is the worst time of your life. I I I hope you make it through this. Middle school sucks. Like,
Rather than bullshit them.
I mean, I'm gonna tell you it gets better. That's what
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you. You go to high school, and the high school is not always great for everybody, but I think that the majority of people who look back on their life and you're like, hey, how was puberty?
Yeah, it was
Like,
great. I loved every second of it. No, it was
oh
actually
yeah,
usually pretty shitty.
no, people are fucking terrible. These kids are fucking terrible too. It's funny because they're like so mean to each other, but then like I get to see like when the other kids are mean, right? Like they're hurting too. Like these
Right.
assholes are hurting so badly, and I'm like, if you just stop being assholes to each other,
Maybe I could be more compassionate if you weren't such a prick, but
just stop being assholes. So the difference is that like when I have them there, like that's all I do is I do this relationship building. I do this, like if they come in and they're off in the morning, I'm like, hey, did you eat? Are you tired? Are you cold?
yeah.
Like, are all of your basic needs met?
Hmm.
Like let's check in. How you feeling? How you doing? How was last night? You
Yeah.
know, and I know all the personal lives, so then I can ask the specific questions to each of them. COVID, I don't my kids don't do anything. I have students who haven't logged on in a month,
Oh
and I
wow.
just have to make the daily or the weekly call home to the parent to just say like, hey, like they're not participating. Are you guys okay? I'm
Hmm.
not. There are some teachers right now who are like, rawr, 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 rawr. Like, why are you not doing your work? Why are you not logging in? I'm just like, are you alive?
Right. You're like, are you okay? Forget the work. Like, I'm not hearing from you.
Yep. Yep.
Right.
And so that's like all I'm really requiring of my students right now is just like, even if you're not participating in my class, if I hear from another teacher, oh, so and so did something in science, then I'm like, all right, that counts. Like they didn't come into my classroom and check in this week, but they checked in with somebody on staff. So, which is unfortunate. Like I don't really like that. I will say, like my own daughter is in high school and she hates
Hmm.
it when I say, oh, at least they checked in with somebody because she's like, mom, like
Yeah.
they should be checking in with you too. Like, but
Hmm.
there's a lot of kids. There's a lot
So
of kids.
do they call you back like on these family checkup calls? Are you getting responses, or are some of them just off the map right now?
Some of them are, well, parents will answer after a while.
Okay.
Sometimes you'll catch them and they don't mean to answer and you can tell.
Mm. Oh
But,
yeah.
you know, um, a lot of all my kids are spec ed kids. Behavior focus looks a lot like alt ed. So I still have all my connections in that community. Green Bay is a small enough area. Most of our students have siblings who are in other schools.
Okay.
So I make phone calls and I'll check in with a counselor at a different school and say, hey, I have so and so, but you have the brother so and so. What have you heard about the family? Is everything okay?
So
Like,
there's a network
yeah, well,
to a
no.
degree.
Yeah. So yes and no.
Okay.
There's a network because that's my personal network that I've made.
Mm.
Like, I have been I've had so many different positions. I've been in a lot of different schools. I know a
Yeah.
lot of different staff in the school district. So I have that personal connection that I know that I can call people and that if I need them to call people for me, I know that they'll do it.
Hmm.
But it's definitely, and that kind of falls back to what I was saying before about like we need smaller schools. We need, more staff because when that connection is there, that's when like I fall back on that. Not everybody has that connection that I do. So,
Yeah.
but sometimes I have to do that, like reach out to multiple people and say, what have you heard? Because we have not gotten any answer. Um, there are times that we can have the local police go check if
Hmm.
we haven't, because we have student resource officers. I don't know, we have cops in our schools.
Yeah.
So every school has an assigned police officer. So if it needs
Yeah.
to go there, we can send the cops over there. But obviously, I don't ever do that because I'm like, nobody wants to see the cops come to their door.
Yeah. If you're looking for the more human, compassionate way or caring way to the law isn't really the way. Yeah. And they have the same here. Like in the major high schools, there's an officer that'll be the school cop type of thing. Um, so question, do you ever see a day where your approach of teaching and the people who are in your line of work that's just the more common way of teaching, like that's how they're teaching people to do it?
I hope that eventually we all get there.
Yeah.
I really have a lot of hope that this whole situation that's going on right now, like, obviously, I wish I could be in the classroom with my students. It would make it so much easier. I hope that this whole COVID situation makes a lot of people realize that we need those connections. We need, to have those relationships and have that there. I don't know if it's really hard to change people's minds when it comes to education. When it comes to saying like not everyone learns the same way, and that doesn't make us like it makes us different from each other, but we're still equals. Like
Yeah.
that is very hard for a lot of people to grasp that like the regular high school education that maybe like I had it does not fit for everyone. And why is there that stigma there?
Still,
Right.
I feel like we've known this for, or people who've realized it, like it's been a realization for a pretty good period of time. I mean, maybe not that long. I guess I don't know about the 70s and 80s, stuff like that. But like at least in the recent times, it seems like a lot of people seem to grasp that.
I mean, I think that your generation is really going to be like the generation that has the power to change a lot of the shitty things about this world. I think that like your generation definitely sees that like it's fine that you learn differently than I do.
Yeah.
What is I think that the young people hold a wealth of knowledge that older people don't want to listen to because why? Because your age is younger than mine?
Yeah.
No. That does not your ideas are just as valid as mine are because guess what? In my head, I'm still like 21 years old. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like in my head, I'm like, I still feel like a kid. Why wouldn't I listen to you? I don't care
Mm-hmm.
if you're 13 and you're telling me that like you think you have a solution for something that's a problem. I'll listen to it. It might be ridiculous. You never know.
Mm-hmm.
Or it might be freaking genius.
Yeah, because it could be the same with somebody of any age.
Yes. But I mean, I really hope that education gets more personalized. I think that a lot of school districts are really struggling right now with COVID and not being able to teach their students. They weren't prepared for this. A lot of people like to say nobody was prepared for this. Well, some people were, but they didn't realize it. There are school
Mm.
districts who already had e-learning in place. It wasn't because they thought a pandemic was coming. It was just because it's probably a smaller school district. They probably have better funding, and all their kids have devices, and e-learning was already a thing. So they are not really struggling right now.
Yeah. Because they've already gotten used to this. They've warmed up to the online teaching, and they've because there are kinks. Like even I would imagine taking online lessons for something. I could imagine it's even if it's guitar or something, it must be so much different. Not
Yeah,
necessarily bad, but different.
it is very different. And like when I went back to school, I was working. I was, working in education, and I decided to go back for my psychology degree, and I did that all online. So
Mm.
I understand what it takes to take like, all those classes,
Yeah.
where like those professors are going to be fine. The college professors that are already teaching online, they're going to be fine because they already know what they're doing. It's the school districts where the teachers aren't educated in technology enough, which is unacceptable because it's here. We made it, and now we don't
Yeah.
know what to do with it because we're dumb.
It's time.
It is right, but I mean, like, there's no reason why most classes should be able to transfer online.
Yeah. It's
Like
true.
like you say, like a guitar class, I would probably want to take in person. But like I know I have a kid who's a senior right now and she's struggling. She has chemistry class. I went the fuck off on her teacher
Oh, really?
because my kid like had a zero, and I was like, why? Like being a teacher and seeing his classroom set up, I was like, what
Well,
are
you
you?
have some perspective there, so
Yeah, and I emailed him and the principal and was like, but it took me going into the class, like her online classroom, and reading everything for like 3 hours to figure out how this guy was communicating when he could have done this, but he refused. He could
yeah.
have done Zoom meet and been like, oh, this is what you need to do for chemistry and write it on a board, hold up a piece of paper and show it to them. Like, come on,
Get
adapt.
into it. That's your job. That's his job, isn't it?
Yes, so adapt. So it's all about adaptation, which is, like I said, special ed should be called adaptive education
Mhm.
because we're all fucking special.
Yeah, hey. We
Like,
all got something.
but I mean, I think that things will change slowly, but not to put any added weight on your shoulders, but it's definitely up to you guys. I mean, I'll do my part, but I'm gonna get too old too quick. Nobody's gonna want to listen to me anymore. So
We're all gonna do our part. No, it is this is an interesting time, and like even with like you say, like people who might stick with the online teaching. I was talking about it yesterday on the show, people who might stay with the online working, like Twitter is letting their employees stay forever if they want working at home. It's like it's insane. So is there anything else that you can share in terms of insight in terms of teaching online in this line of work right now? You said there's a lot of people not really logging on and interacting.
well, I mean, I will say that like during this time, we're going to feel the ramifications of this for a very long time. My, sights are set on education, so I mean, obviously in every aspect of life, but I'm talking specifically education. We're going to feel the effects of this for a very long time, for things like reasons I can think of, and for probably a plethora of reasons that I can't.
Yeah, it's hard to predict right now.
It's a lot of parents are worried because their kids aren't participating enough. I would say that I don't worry about it. I don't worry about it. I make sure, like, my 8-year-old, she does her schoolwork, like if it's late, it's late. And I know her teacher knows that she's a good kid. She's going to possibly retain what she learned this year, but she's probably going to learn a lot. It's going to take some adaptation in the next couple of years to make up for our deficits with all the kids. My senior, still has to take her classes and turn in all of her stuff because she still has to get her last couple credits.
Right.
So that she can fake graduate in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's a shame.
She's very, very sad about it. There's a lot of kids who are very depressed right now,
Yeah.
for all different reasons. I told her a million times, look at it this way. My high school graduation probably looked just like your high school graduation. They all look the same. If you've seen a high school movie where the kids graduate, that's what all of our graduations look like, but they probably weren't outside with such beautiful people.
Right.
If I told her, like, nobody can remake this. It'll never look like this again. Like,
that's a good point.
I know that it hurts. I know that you worked for 12 straight years to get the same graduation I had, but anybody could have the graduation I had. Nobody can have the graduation that you have, and everything's going to change in education after this. So you're like the last class before everything changes. Like, I think they'll look back in the future and see like the line that was just drawn after the pandemic.
Yeah.
So you just have to like really spin it a positive way. Like, you can't look at all that we've lost. You have to look at what we can gain from all this. We can change, we can adapt, we can make things better. Because this kind of shit's not going to stop happening. This pandemic stuff. Like, we all got cocky as a people and thought that like we were above like, the Spanish flu, which is a racist term. I hate to use it, but that's what they called it in 1918.
Right.
And it freaking killed a ton of people. And we were all like, oh, we have Western medicine. It's never going to happen to us. We're too smart. No,
we're immune.
We're immune to that, right? No, we're not. We got cocky and now we're paying for it. I think that there's, I don't know how many parents of small children you have that listen to your show, but I'm pretty sure it's a lot because
I think it's probably a good amount.
They're all my friends and they're all stressed out. And all I can say is, as a teacher, I'm stressed out too. I'm not working half as much as I would usually work, but I'm twice as stressed. It's just as hard for me to sit here and write these lesson plans and put the work in the computer as it is for you to get your kid to log in and look at it. All we have to do is get through it right now. That's it. That's everybody's worried about their kids in school. Don't worry about it. Like, just make sure you don't lose your mind.
Yeah. Is that, and that's commendable too. Like it is crazy because even on a regular day, it's, probably just as hard for some days for the teacher to get to the school as it is for the student. Like, does that, how big of a challenge, like, I guess how big of a challenge is the wrong way to phrase the question. Like, what are you really doing to get through that? And like, how much harder has it made it to be there for people like in that way?
Well, I mean, it's weird because we're all feeling the same thing. We're all stuck. We're all at home. We're all, scared or, whatever. I mean, maybe not all of us, but me, I am. It's challenging to be a stay-at-home mom now and be attentive to my other kids. It's hard for me to get up in the morning and like be motivated to sit in front of my computer like this and hope that somebody logs on, because I do live, I have live office hours. So I'll just sit here and work with my camera on, and then it'll ping at me if somebody joins me, and then we'll, whatever, talk about schoolwork or, like I have one student who comes every day. I think that's actually what's getting me through right now. I have one student who shows up every day and we're reading the same book together. So that counts as like class time. Um,
Nice.
it's just, it's hard for me because I have kids at home who are depressed and who want to leave the house and who don't want to do their schoolwork. And I have to deal with that over my literally like over my shoulder while I'm trying to like give myself to these kids and like force a connection to still be there. I
Yeah.
mean, it's stressful for everybody. It's the same, stress as everybody feels right now. Um, I don't know why anybody acts like we shouldn't be understanding or we should be expecting all this from stay-at-home parents because no, like it feels like summer vacation. Do you want to sit in your house right now? Everybody's at
Yeah.
home. Nobody has anywhere to be. Why would I want to get on the computer and work? I want to go take the dog to the dog park or go
Hmm.
camping or whatever. I can't do any of it, but I mean, like, why would I expect anybody else to feel differently?
Yeah, it is weird. It's like there has never, and it's been widely reported. I mean, I'm not the first to say it, but there's never been a situation where everybody's been in the same worldwide, sort of in the same circumstance, and it's very
Yeah.
like it's very odd and bizarre. Um, I think the Joe Rogan special "Strange Times" should have came out in 2020 because I think it's more appropriate for now. It's insane, but
Yeah, it is definitely strange times. Yeah.
it's definitely strange, but it's good that you're still doing it. Like for me on my end, like I kind of feel the same way. Like when the beginning of this and once the first few weeks went by, like when I would sit down in front of the mic, I was just like I wasn't feeling inspired. So my answer to it has just been to get on the air. Like I've been getting on the air every single day, and it's like just to have something to wake up for, like you said, like that student. You know what I mean? For me, it's just like I have maybe something to say on a mic, and that's what's going to get me up out of bed in the morning. Because, so I hope everybody has that, like because it's tough without it.
Well, and my personal recommendation is like I have meetings that I have to go to every week. Um, and I have one that's like super early on one morning, and I go to bed the night before every time thinking, oh, I don't want to get up and go to this meeting. And you know what? I wake up before my alarm every time because
Mm,
I get to see people, and it's like we're all missing that social connection. I think people are realizing now more than ever, like how much we really rely on that like energy we get from other people.
yeah.
um and just to have that, like you have to, so what, like get on Zoom and do yoga with Mish. you
Hey,
know mish
yes.
the dish does $12 yoga every Sunday morning. Dirty DeVoe and I do it every Sunday morning with Mish. Get on there and do it. Like find stuff to keep yourself motivated. Keep getting on the air. I keep getting up because I have a student who will show up to my office hours. You have to, if you're not finding something to like look forward to during your day, you need to find something. I don't care if you want to start whittling or flying a
Yeah.
kite or something. Like I
Seriously.
I got obsessed with my Apple Watch as soon as this started. I don't exercise. I'm not an exerciser.
Me either.
I'm gonna just chill. Um, but April hit, and I was like, I should close all my rings. Like you exercise, you close your little rings. It
Hmm.
congratulates you, whatever. And I was like, you know what? All the month of April, I think I'm gonna get a perfect month. I'm gonna go for a perfect month. It's not that hard. I have to exercise 30 minutes a day. Poof, really difficult.
Yeah, it
And
could be done.
I hate it. I hate it every day. I'm like, I have to go get on the elliptical and I don't want to, but I do it.
Yeah.
And it's great. I love it. But like, I don't care what it is. Everybody should find something to get up for. Read a book.
Yeah. What are you reading with your student, by the way?
It is a book called So Cold the River.
Okay.
And it's kind of strange. And like halfway through it, the story kind of just picked up. So probably not something I would have picked, but they were reading it and supposed to be doing a book report, and they were like, oh, this sounds so hard, this book report paper that you put in my, and I was like, just get on Google and just tell me who's the main character, stuff like that. But yeah, So Cold the River, it's not bad, it's decent. I don't recommend lists of books to people, but I mean,
Mm,
like anything, like if you like to get up and make coffee in the morning, then make fancy coffee. I don't know, like
right.
if you have the time to do it, find something to enjoy in your life right now because unfortunately people there is no going back. Things are not going
Right.
back normal.
I've been hearing a lot of people say that. Like,
Why would we go back to normal? Why on earth, in any area of what we're doing, would we want to rewind time and go back to what there was before when we can grow and be better and make something new?
right.
I have zero desire to go back in time 3 months. Like, yes, I miss being able to go out with my friends. Yes, I would love to go to the bar. Yes, I want to go to a Packers game. But if this pandemic means that we come out on the other side of this smarter, better, more knowledgeable, more compassionate, more caring, then all those people can be fucking Death Squad fans, because that's what Death Squad was, dude. That's what Death Squad
Hey.
was. It was people who we were like, let's buy a commune and all live together because
Yeah.
we love each other, because we're accepting. I don't care, who you are or what you do or what you look like. We all like the same comedies, so we're all on the same page. And like, we should all go watch Duncan Trussell's new special
On Netflix and all that. Yeah.
yes, like, if people come out of on the other side of this the way we were in 2010, 11, 12, 13, like, please, thank you. I hope we are better people after this. I have zero desire to go back to what we had before.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Like, definitely, I feel that way in terms of like the systems that we have in place, like a lot of the education, a lot of the workplace stuff. Like, in terms of the entertainment and music, personally, I would like to go back to that. Like, I would like to be out
Yeah,
backstage at shows doing interviews. But I think that's kind of what you're saying, isn't it? Or no? Like, I don't want to
right.
put
No,
words in your
I
mouth.
would love to be able to have that piece of it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, yeah, like, I would love to be able to go out and have the social aspect, but
Yeah.
just different. Like, we're all a little more humanized now.
Mm-hmm. That's
Um,
true.
People forget that, like, we're all just little balls of energy bouncing around. Like, nobody is any better than anybody else. It doesn't matter how much money you make or what kind of car you drive. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody gives a shit.
Nobody respectable gives a shit. That's for sure.
No, no, nobody gives a shit. Like, there's a reason why Bert goes out and talks to all of his fans, because he's just a dude.
Yeah.
He's just a dude. He's funny as hell. We all know who he is, but he's
Mm-hmm.
just a dude. Like, I don't know. I mean, that's what I miss. I'd love to go back to that a little bit and be
Yeah.
able to go to shows and go backstage and hang out and stuff. But in the grand scheme of like society and how things run, who we appreciate, yeah, that all needs to change.
That's a good point. Who we appreciate, definitely. Because there's a family member of mine who's in law enforcement who's still out working. And they said that the way that people look at them, he said, yeah, I've never experienced that before. And I was like, are they like scared because you're out during the flu, like, or the pandemic? Like, what is it? And he's like, no, it's just like appreciation, like respect, fear. Like, but I'm like, I've felt that way about law enforcement my whole life just because they're my family. But like, if you really think about it, that person's taking a huge risk every single day, regardless. So it's like, it's true who we're appreciating. Cause I think it's like people should appreciate doctors and nurses and all these people like
Yeah.
more so on a regular day, you know?
Yeah. But I feel like, because they make more money and stuff like that, then we have, shown appreciation or respect, I guess, maybe more so. But like, I live in Green Bay. It's a small town. I go
Mm-hmm.
to the same grocery store all the time. I know the girls there by name,
Yeah.
like, and I tell them, I appreciate the hell out of you.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate the hell out of you right now, because I know how much you make. I know, that you're getting a bonus right now, which is great. You, as well, you should be. You should have been making more in the first place. But I was always kind to them, and that's why I know them all
Yeah.
before. But now, like, I make sure to say if I just go in there for toilet paper, I make sure to talk to every employee I see and thank them. And that's the way it should have been before. I always say in education, and I'll repeat it until I'm blue in the face to everybody in the world. And if it goes for education, it goes for everything. It's like a clock. you're not going to look at the biggest cog in the clock and be like, oh, that cog's the best. Because if you pull out that teeny tiny little piece at the bottom, that shit ain't running. It doesn't
This is
matter how,
true.
like, it takes every piece to keep this running. It's
Yeah.
when it's in a school, appreciate the custodians, appreciate the lunch ladies, appreciate the bus drivers. They are some of my biggest I get a lot of information about my kids. If they have an off day, I go to the bus driver.
Yeah.
Oh, like, were they late to the bus stop? Stuff like that. It all runs because we all play a part. And right now, people are just realizing that, like, we should have been appreciating all the pieces of our society instead of just the ones that can buy a Lamborghini.
Right. Yeah. No, that's so true, because it expands to the grocery store workers, like you're saying. And I even think about even people that's like working at takeout. It's like, you know what I
Right?
mean? It's
Yep. Thank you
interesting.
for working at McDonald's because my kid wanted a freaking Happy Meal. Like, thank you.
I can't make them one.
Do you know how many teenagers here work in the nursing homes?
Oh, really?
Do you know how many high school students right now are essential workers and are working like 40 hours a week and are taking care of all of our loved ones that we can't go see?
Yeah.
And
That's
they're
crazy.
getting COVID. They're getting COVID. Like, these teenagers are getting sick. And no, and we don't appreciate it? Why? They should. Yes. So I think that we should come out on the other side of this. Like, we appreciate everybody. Don't look down on somebody because they have a job at McDonald's. You eat that food. If they didn't work there, you wouldn't eat it. So shut your fucking mouth.
Exactly. Hey, yeah, supply and demand.
Yes. But, like, just, we should appreciate everybody equally. Everybody should be treated the same. Always. I mean, my job is important because I teach spec ed kids. Yeah, it is important. But it's also important for the lady who rings me up at the gas station because otherwise I can't put gas in my car.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
no, it's totally true.
So yeah, like, part of me is like, I miss comedy shows and fun stuff like that. And I would love to go back to that. And the other part of me is like, I hope everything changes.
Yeah. No, definitely a huge amount of validity to both. And that's why I love having a forum like this where we can chop it up and give people both. And I just want to say thank you again. Like, just thank you for what you're doing and being out there trying to help people, like, even far before this, but now especially having to go through it yourself and trying to help people isn't easy. So I personally appreciate you. I know everybody listening appreciates you. And if there's anything you can tell us about where we can find you or anything else you want to add, I'd love to hear it.
Well, I'm kind of a homebody now. I can't go to any shows. You can always find me on Twitter at Jill Himitsu. You can find me on pretty much anything that you're on social media wise. It's Jill Himitsu. Nothing's changed. I don't do a lot of like Facebook and stuff. I really hate it. It's toxic. But I have one, obviously. But Instagram and Twitter, Snapchat, but within reason. I'm not accepting. We don't accept all the requests on that.
No, Twitter OGs I think Twitter's the best bet. Instagram for sure.
It is for sure. And I have to say, like, thank you for continuing to do what you do. Like I said, I came into Death Squad, and to me, you were already there. You were already established. You were already an OG, and you were like 12. You were 12, and we can drink together now. So that's weird to me, a little bit. But but what you're doing is important too. Like, this is important because people need communication and they need connection, and we need people like you to foster that. And to keep that whole Death Squad lovey-dovey feeling there.
Hell yeah.
You are definitely like, you have established yourself. You were an OG then and you're an OG now. And so it's going to live on. But, show some, I want everybody like who listens to just remember like how much we love each other and like show some love. Like all of our friends who are artists who have Etsy shops, like if you don't have the money, cool. Don't show them love, retweet it.
Yeah.
Like retweet it. Like if,
sharing is free.
Yes. Sharing is free. And if you can afford to, like, buy their art because that helps them pay their bills. If you can afford $20, then, buy some art, love each other, remember why we were here in the first place together, you know.
Exactly. Show that little bit of support. I love
Yeah.
that. Jill Himitsu, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I've had so much fun.
And there you have it. My exclusive interview with Jill Himitsu, discussing all of the ups and downs, in and outs of special and alt education and the element of doing it now over the internet. Very challenging. As I said, I salute Jill and everybody else who does things like she does, who's in the similar fields, and of course anybody else who's an essential worker at this time. If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to subscribe here on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you're choosing to listen or watch. And please leave a comment, like, subscribe. Did I say subscribe? All that good stuff. You guys know the drill by now. Follow me on Twitter at Cassius Morris, Instagram at Cassius Morris _, and the Facebook page is facebook.com/Cassius Show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, this is Cassius Morris saying, rock on.